Always set it back down.
Join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas.
One state, under God.
Please join me as I pray. Again, Father, we're thankful for the blessings of this day and the opportunity to live in this great country and this great state and great community. And Lord, we're called on to live by faith today because we don't know what the future brings. And your word tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, but the evidence of things not seen. So we don't know what the future brings. It's cloudy, and all of these commissioners and all our elected officials do the best they can to plan for the future. But we need your wisdom. We need your guidance. We need your understanding. We don't understand what's happening, but we know that you are in control and we do trust you. So we just pray now that you would keep your hand on this great country and that you would protect us and guide us through all of these issues that are causing effect on us right now. We pray for these commissioners. They probably have the most difficult job they've ever had trying to plan for this county to move forward. We just pray you give them your wisdom and your understanding, and the decisions they make will benefit the citizens of this county and glorify you. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Good morning, everyone. We do have a quorum. And the first item is citizens to be heard, of which we have one, Mr. Himes, or him. Yes, sir, come on up.
I had a longer presentation. You have a packed courthouse and a packed agenda. I'm going to shorten it. I think all of you, except possibly you, Judge
Yes,
Mills.
Yes, sir, you have a time limit.
I understand that. That's why I'm
Okay.
going to shorten it. I think you're all aware there's a erosion and drainage program that's scheduled for Fulton Beach Road. The presentation, I mentioned that in April 2018, we had a multi-jurisdictional workshop and agreed that the most important thing for recovery was to repair and strengthen our attractions and venues and to build new ones. Fulton Beach Road is a venue. It's an attraction. This project, I've included pictures. Those of us who live on the road, those of us who frequent the road, I'm including artists, fishermen, people, property owners, looking at this picture, believe this is going to reduce the utility of that shoreline. It's going to make it less of an attraction than it has been since we've been here. In the interest of brevity, there is a public meeting. The AC&D has graciously given us a public meeting. We've been denied that. We've been given presentations. We've been given no opportunity for input. It was decided before we got a chance to comment. The handouts that I have for you, the last page is a listing from the Rockport pilot that describes the breakwater project as originally proposed was going to be $1 million or so. This is a totally different beast. We believe it should have gone back for public comment to the citizens of the county. We have an opportunity now, Wednesday night at the pavilion, to get some public input. We have, again, if you can attend, I think you can we're on the agenda and we'll have time to make some longer comments. What I'm asking for, what we're asking for today is that this commissioner's court take a direct interest in this. This is not the project that people thought it was. I took it to the mayor of both Fulton and Rockport. They looked at the photo and said, oh, this is not what I thought it would be. I really don't think this is a good thing. I'm asking you to take an interest in it that we can look for. And there are other solutions. I brought in coastal geologists, marine biologists, attorneys, all agree there's another way to handle this. We're going to present some of that Wednesday evening, but I'm asking you again, take a direct input into this project and see if we can find another way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And we have a presentation. I have the honor and the privilege to announce that the Aransas County Historical Commission has received the Distinguished Service Award again. I can't remember how many years in a row that is. I'm sure Betty can let me know. But in saying that, go ahead.
Consecutive.
Pardon me? Betty?
10 consecutive.
How many?
Connection problem here.
10?
10
Okay.
consecutive years.
So it's quite an honor, and these men and women on our commission work really hard, and they're to be commended. I have the certificate here, and there's a press release for the newspaper. In this time, I mean, who wants to take a picture with me? They're on the TV. But this is a certificate. They're all to be honored for all their hard work. So please give them a round of applause. Thank you. And now we have a presentation from Ms. Stiles on their contribution and volunteer hours. Ms. Stiles?
Yes, Judge and Commissioners, we devoted 2,501 volunteer hours in 2019 for a total of the check that we present to you today for $62,525 of man hours volunteered.
Thank you very much. And as I said earlier, these people work extremely hard and they volunteer their time to this tune of $62,000 plus. So we really do appreciate that also. Thank you for all you do.
Mrs. Stop. It's just a small thing, Mrs. Stop, but there's no routing number on the bottom of that check.
All right. Now we're here for the presentation from William Whitson, the long-term recovery team. This will be a comprehensive presentation on the current status of the recovery effort. The presentation will cover the courthouse, portion of the downtown anchor project, DTA grant, status for our various projects, general financing strategies, NEPA compliance, and downtown anchor micro hospital project, Cedar biohazard mitigation project, and a few things more that I probably forgot about. Go ahead, Mr. Whitson.
Thank you, Judge. It's my honor to come and share with this community. I took this picture some 3 years ago, and that's what's in your rear view mirror. What I'd like to do today is talk about all the various projects and parts that we have going on as a recovery team. We're not perfect, but I think we've made a lot of progress since this photo was taken. That's in the rear view mirror, but certainly definitely not in your future. Colin, I'm trying to advance the slide. I did turn it on. There, okay. Like I said, I want to go over the general background of what we did as a community. Judge, you and this Commissioner's Court should be commended for the leadership that you have taken in this recovery. It is very unusual to see a community come together and formulate a solid plan on how you're going to attack such a catastrophic event. So what we want to do is talk a little bit about that plan. We want to talk about and highlight some of the key projects that we have going on in the year 2020. Despite the pandemic, I think we are making some headway. I want to talk a little bit about FEMA, the state of Texas, our hazard mitigation efforts, and some of the other funding sources that we have tried to take advantage of. 3 years ago, we stood in unimaginable territory. And this commissioners court agreed that we should take a look at all the damage that was done in Harvey on a comprehensive basis. We went out and we surveyed, we talked to people, we assessed damage, we worked with FEMA, we worked with the state, we worked with the citizens, and we came up with a comprehensive plan where we tried to identify all the things that Harvey did on the ground damage. And then we took a look at the available resources, and this commissioners court was very clear to our team: go find money. Go make sure that whatever resources out there from the state or federal government is brought to bear on these problems. And believe me, in a lot of instances, there was a great fit. In other instances, we have had to take those federal programs and state programs and try to make them fit your on-the-ground damage in your situation. And I'm here to give you an update on how that's going. This is a graphic depiction of the plan. It went through numerous areas, all the way from healthcare to debris, to housing, to economic development, and so forth and so on. It is kind of our master guide of all of the areas that we have tried to tackle. And then we went out and, like I said, we identified over 20 different funding sources. And again, I want to remind everyone that this game is played by the golden rule. He who has the gold or the resources makes the rules. So we had to take our local projects and try to identify them and make them fit the various funding sources as best we could. It is not a perfect process, but I think we've come a long way. Now, the great thing you have to remember about how to keep all this straight is there are 4 different waves in this long-term recovery of funding. The first wave was what they call public assistance. That also lines up with individual assistance. So if you remember the days where everybody said, okay, sign up with FEMA, okay, if you had damage at your house and those kind of things, that's called IA, or individual assistance. Well, at the same time, the local governments were doing the same thing, and it's called public assistance. The rate of that assistance was 90% federal, 10% local match. And then the state stepped in and said, hey, you know that 10%, we'll give you 75% of the 10%. So that means that we were only going to match 25% of the 10%. Then the next wave of funding was hazard mitigation. And we had to put in multiple applications, multiple projects, and go through what is called the BCA, or the benefit cost analysis. And if you've ever done a federal benefit cost analysis and all the algorithms and various complexities of that process, with a lot of our records destroyed, that was quite a challenge. So we literally got a researcher involved and went back to the newspapers, 40, 50 years, found data, got our local historian, swore them in under oath. I mean, we went to extreme measures to try to build the database to go after the hazard mitigation money. It was not easy. Then the third wave of funding, which we're just now beginning to see, believe it or not, is called the CBDG-DR, which is the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Relief Funds. That's 100% money from the federal and state government. So that's prize money. You want to go after that. You want to make sure that you try to capture as much of that as you can. And we worked behind the scenes to do that, and was awarded a $53.8 million pot of funding. It was the largest CBDG-DR money given in Harvey. And then the last round of funding, the last wave of funding flowing from Congress to Austin down to the local level, is the CBDG MIT, or hazard mitigation money. That's just now beginning to come out. We're just now beginning to do the planning for that. That again is administered through the state of Texas from HUD. and that's 100% money, but it's not easy to get. So let's talk about where we ended up with all of these various waves of funding. Right now, the latest figures are that we are over $130 million. When you look at CBDG-DR, the hazard mitigation, the public assistance, EDA grants, which is the U.S. Economic Development Administration, again, not easy money to get, the damage to Keel Egro Bridge, other state and federal resources for public assistance, Rebuild Texas. I mean, we scoured the landscape. And I cannot thank your auditor's office enough. They have been amazing. In fact, a lot of the people at the state and federal government, you know, brag on these guys. And I do too, because they have been solid in tracking all this money and working with our team. We have a pending grant out of that third wave, if you recall, the CBDG-DR money, the 100% money for the micro hospital of $10.4 million. So we're not going to sit here and let $10.4 million opportunity at zero match go by the wayside. So we continue to work on that project. Some of the hazard mitigation projects we still have pending in the planning process is in that fourth wave, and we are just now beginning to gear up and come forward with that. And I'll also mention too that we were fortunate to receive some additional multifamily housing project money from money we turned back in, because we said, hey, that's our money. Don't take that money and do a project in Houston or somewhere else. Take that money and try to put it back here because we couldn't find a way to utilize it. And thankfully, GLO listened. If everything goes well, perfectly executed, which I don't know, we'll see, this team will eventually reach over $245 million in state and federal awards. And that, I think, for a county your size is unprecedented and should be something you should be very, very proud of. And we couldn't do it without the leadership of the judge and the commissioner's court and all the staff. You have an amazing staff here, and you should be proud of what we've done collectively together. So let's talk a little bit about what we have on our plate today for 2020. Somebody was telling me 2020 stinks. This pandemic is terrible. It's all weird. You know, you're trying to shake hands with people or wear masks and all the challenges that come with that. Well, I agree. And I said, well, maybe we need a do-over. But guess what? The process, like it or not, grinds on. The opportunity to get this federal money, state money, is now. You can't wait until it passes you by and then say, oh, well, you know what? I think I'd like to apply for that grant. Well, sorry, the deadline's behind you. And I like the gentleman's prayer this morning, quoting Hebrews 11, chapter 1, about the faith. It's not a perfect vision that we have to know exactly how this stuff's going to go. But believe me, the effort, the spirit has been strong, and we have tried very hard to get it right and to please as many people as we could and reach out to as many people as we could. So let me just kind of highlight what the major projects are on the long-term recovery team's to-do list for 2020. And we've been hot and heavy working this. And this is flowing from the presentation that you asked me to do. I think I was here in January to give an update. And I apologize that it's taken us this long to, realize some progress and come back to you, but we want to try to keep doing these updates to keep you informed. The Downtown Anchor Courthouse project is big on our list. We'll be hearing more details about that today and tomorrow. As I said, the micro hospital is a very key project on our to-do list that we are going to keep focusing on. The Cedar Bayou initiative, thanks to the judge's leadership and John Strothman and so many other people out there that have indicated how important that project is. Harvey came ashore. You had just finished opening up Cedar Bayou. Things were going well. And I'll be darned if he didn't wash everything back in there and close it up. And that is a bad economic impact to your community, because that chokes off that ecosystem, chokes off the flow of fish and crabs to the endangered species and the other ecosystem that you have there. And so we have now, thank goodness, received over $7 million in federal assistance to help address that problem. We are actively working on the projects. Have you heard one concern about the Fulton Beach Road, Shell Ridge Road, Lamar Beach Road, and Little Bay? All of those projects were brought to our team early on. We talked to many people about all of those projects, and we are taking the federal process, which is not perfect, and we're trying to follow their rules and work through those projects and deliver you a one-time opportunity through the resources that are flowing out of Washington to address this storm, to get this right. We are implementing all of the CBDG-DR projects, which I'm going to go over a list of those. Like I said, this summer, we'll be chasing the hazard mitigation dollars. You've already awarded a contract to Tetra Tech for the grant administration associated with that. And we'll soon be coming back to you with recommendations for the engineering awards tied to that money, so we can get the planning going and get our projects in. I think, Kim, the deadline's in October, late October of this year. So we don't want to miss that window for 100% money. And then we are continuing to do everything we can to move forward with all of these multiple projects all at the same time and stay on top of the funding, make sure we don't violate any rules, and make sure that you don't get any kind of concern letter down the road. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the major public assistance projects. This is just kind of a list of those, starting with Cedar Bayou and some of the other projects that we have awarded. And again, I apologize that not everybody can see the screen, but we will put this on the website. And I believe Mr. Probst has asked for a copy, so it'll be in the paper, I'm sure. Let's talk about the downtown anchor and the courthouse portion of the downtown anchor. The downtown anchor is a project to anchor the downtown, to make sure that the heart of the community doesn't suffer economically, dry up and blow away because of the lack of activity. And since your courthouse was destroyed, was near that location, and the city hall facility was destroyed, it was decided that why can't we come together with that project and make a very, very strong bounce back story for the community. And we were even able to secure grant money for another portion of the project, which I'll describe in just a minute. So the courthouse project right now, and you're going to hear a presentation from the architect in a few minutes, is at 46,419 square feet. That is larger than your old facility. Why? Because you're growing. The court cases in this county have increased over 51% in the last 3 years. The technology needs are there, as we can see just from the commissioner's court today. There's also service needs that the community has to meet. That courthouse was older than me. It was over 60 years old, and it was time to update it and time to replace it. And with all of the grant and insurance resources we were able to secure by hook or crook, it represents over a 45% discount on the replacement of that facility. So not only did you have the need to replace it in its life cycle, I hate to say Harvey did you a favor, but because of Harvey, we were able to take advantage of the federal and state money, the insurance, and put together a project that will hopefully make the community proud and meet your needs 40, 50 years down the road. In terms of the actual amounts, right now we're projecting over 18.5 million for construction with the A&E, the construction manager agent, some of your contingency and electronic equipment testing, so forth like that. The total price tag is going to end up somewhere between 20 and $21 million, plus the other part of the project, which is what we're calling Celebration Plaza, which we were able to work closely with GLO and receive a 100% grant for that portion of the project, over $3.8 million. So that project, the Celebration Plaza, will sit between the City Hall and the courthouse and become an open area point of celebration to commemorate your resilience and your bounce back from this terrible event. You will become stronger, better, and more resilient as a result. And that's our plan. In terms of available resources between private donations, insurance, federal and state grants, there's the list right there. We have a little over 9.9 million plus the Celebration Plaza, which is 100% funded. So again, that's where I come up with my figures of a 45% discount on this new project, which you desperately need. You don't have a home that adequately works at this point. The CBDG DR funding, like I said, was the largest CBDG DR funding awarded to any one, according to GLO, that's what they're telling me, was $53.8 million. Most of that money, $37.7 million, is going into drainage projects, and I'm going to go over a list of what those projects are. You can see the $3.8 million for the common areas or the Celebration Plaza portion. And then still the only piece of that money, you've been awarded $43 million. The only piece of that money that's not awarded yet, and we have been going back and forth with GLO, we have an active request for additional information, or RFI. We answered that RFI on June 24. And we anticipate their response very soon. And hopefully we'll work out the technical details with that grant and again, have the $10.4 million award soon. This is just a summary of the allocation. Again, this was rules placed on this money by Congress and by the federal agencies. 70% of it had to be spent to benefit low to moderate income persons. That was our restriction. So here's $53 million, but you can't use that just any way you want. You have to use 70% of it for LMI purposes or low to moderate income. 30%, if it meets the national objectives and urgent need, yeah, okay, you submit your requests and we'll go over it and we'll award you that 30%. So that's how the pot of money gets divided. So the federal government is famous for handing you the funds, but also handing you a big pile of regulations and restrictions that go with those funds. The next part is the drainage area, and I wanted to kind of stop for a minute, Judge, and go over this list. That involves projects from Linden Street, Southwest Aransas County, Ruby Allen Taylor Streets, more money for Southeast Aransas County, Copano Heights, Holiday Beach, Loop Road 1781, and Rattlesnake Point. And you can see the figures there. Now, I know I keep getting questions, and I think it's good. You probably are getting contacts from some of your constituents. Well, I thought you said you were going to be doing drainage work here. Yes, we are. But we have to comply with all of the federal regulations, and believe me, they are not easy to comply with. There's a lot of planning, a lot of engineering, and yes, unfortunately, you go out, you get the public input, you design the project, and your engineer comes up with a design, and then yes, we'll probably have to go out for more conversations. That's very much similar to the way we do it with hazard mitigation. Is it a perfect process? No, it is not. It is a lengthy process. It is a complicated process, but it is a process that works. And pretty soon, you're going to have over $37 million worth of drainage work, badly needed drainage work, to address these LMI areas in your community. So again, I apologize that it has taken so long. It is not our doing. It is the doing of the process, and we are following it and trying to get it right and do the best we can. FEMA hazard mitigation funding, same kind of process, only even more complex than the CBDG-DR money. This is where you have to complete the federal BCA process, benefit cost analysis, and it is extremely complex to prove that for every federal dollar you receive, the federal government is receiving a greater benefit. That's the formula in a nutshell. Well, believe me, that's a lot of input, a lot of data, a lot of interpretation, a lot of back and forth. We've submitted projects to FEMA, and it would take them almost a year to review it. In fact, one of these projects I'm pretty upset at them about, because we submitted our information back in November, and we still haven't heard anything from them. And believe me, is it July? Okay. What? I mean, but this is the process that we have to go through. And again, it follows the golden rule. They are the ones that set the rules, not you and I, not because it might make sense on the ground to somebody's eye. It has to be meeting all of their federal tests and all of the engineering scrutiny that go along with the funding. All right, now I want to go into the state hazard mitigation competition, and I'm going to ask my colleague Kim to come forward and present this, because she has taken the lead. As you can tell, there's so many projects and so many different things going on all at the same time. Not just one person can handle it all. So Kim and I have kind of divided up the workload, and she has part of it, and I have the other part of it. And after she finishes with her small piece here, I want to then go and do an in-depth conversation downtown Anchor with Paul, and I have some additional information to provide. Kim?
I'm going to go over this very quickly because it's just been maybe 3 weeks since we initially introduced this funding source and started talking about these projects. As William mentioned, we have hired Tetra Tech to help us vet the possible projects. And what we're looking at is there's a pot of money that's coming up. It's a couple of phased project process. The first phase is happening. We'll do our vetting this summer, and as William mentioned, it'll be due October 22nd. So we'll have a update before then to get your nod that you approve of the projects that we're contemplating, that were vetted out by our grants administrator and their assistants. But what we're looking at in the first pot, there's a potential of $84 million. Now I've got some duplication here because our shoreline resiliency projects, they may be eligible for this statewide competition, or we may be able to use our local allocation that comes through the Council of Governments for those projects. We don't know what the funding level is going to be from the COG that's going to flow through the COG. Therefore, we've got to keep that ball in the air for both of these funding pots, but still it's CDBG mitigation. So we're allowed to apply for 3 projects through the statewide competition. It has to be regional in nature. And so the first one we've got is the fiber optic loop. We've talked about that for a long time. We're working with regional partners. It's very likely that Aransas County is going to be lead for all the regional partners for that. We're also looking at millions and millions of drainage, road and drainage work. Aransas Pass, and that portion of Aransas County has submitted $22 million worth of drainage and road projects and a little bit of water included in that, as well as we have another 12.5 million. And what we will probably end up doing, if we can get it qualified, is combine those two initiatives into one project. So we get down to, so we only count that one as one project. That total there is $84 million. This is where the big money comes from. They allow for up to $100 million per project. The second is what I was talking about is it's the same pot of money, CDBG mitigation, but it flows through the Council of Governments, what's called their method of distribution allocation. You can see there again, the top three lines there with mitigation match. Our shoreline resiliency projects including Little Bay dredging. That is the money that you saw on the other page that I believe it's 34 million. That is a possibility to go through this process. Again, we don't know how much money is going to be available through this process, so we don't know which direction we're going to have to go as far as submission. We also have some real quality airport improvements that we really believe is going to qualify. It is a regional airport, and so it should get points for having a regional impact. And then we still have a number of generators that we ran through the FEMA mitigation process that didn't get funded, that we still, that's a gap there that we're trying to fill. And so that is additional money. And then there were two other projects that we talked about, or project sources. One was FEMA BRIC, which is a program that was originally designed to do a lot of the Hurricane Dome projects. They allow other types of projects as well. And so we'll be coming back after we've been able to explore that further to talk about whether the commissioners want to go ahead and pursue a dome project, or if there's something else in that program that you'd like to pursue that would qualify. We're also going to look at the dome for the funding source, the CDBG, that mitigation that we were previously just talking about. I'm not sure that it qualifies right now. We're going to get some additional support from our grant administrator to vet that. And then finally, we'll be talking about later today a new EDA opportunity, Economic Development Administration.
Okay, so to try and tie a bow on my presentation, our team is asking this commission and this community for something that's in short supply, and that's faith. We need to have faith in the process. We've come this far. We have made the sacrifices to get this far. We are making headway. It was this commission that insisted that you have a recovery plan. The window for that recovery plan for 100% complete recovery, which you're well on your way to do, was 3 to 5 years. I stand before you on the 3-year mark. I was hoping we'd have a little more progress, but again, our pace is controlled by the folks that send the money. We are doing this work every single day. We are no further away nor closer than an email or a phone call. All of this information will be posted on our website. We want the public's input. If you think it's easy, you try doing it. We're doing everything we can to represent you and make you proud of the effort that you have done. And all over the state, I think you are beginning to set the pace for recovery. There are a lot of people that are a lot farther behind, believe it or not, than you are. Couple of other quick points before we go into the downtown anchor. There'll be on your agenda later on today a conversation about borrowing, about bond. We've always said we would have to borrow something to complete the downtown anchor of the courthouse. The question we never could answer was how much. Well, now we're beginning to get the data on the how much. And we'll be happy to answer any of your questions about that. Our estimates were given in 2018. Apparently, construction costs have escalated between 2018 and today. But we continue to work with our team to value engineer and make sure that we bring you the best project that we can. One other federal process that's ongoing as we speak in this, as if I hadn't mentioned enough, is NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act. This is a brochure which we will be making available on our website and through the public in our public meetings tomorrow that talks about that process. That's the environmental clearance of your site, your chosen site for the construction of the new courthouse. So far, so good. Mont McDonald, our engineer, technical expert. And again, we'll be sharing all that information with you. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over the presentation to really drill in on our #1 priority project, and that is the downtown anchor of the courthouse. And that is my friends, sometimes my friends and sometimes not my friends. We go back and forth with PGAL. We have Paul Burnett, and then we also have Larry Ersick from Arcla, Texas. Great folks. Pleasure to work with them. You're in good hands. Paul?
Thank you, William. Thank you, Judge and Commissioners, for having us here today to give you an update. And we have been working very hard with William and John Strothman, and of course you, Judge, on progressing this project, progressing the design for the courthouse. Trying to advance this here one. Next slide. There we go. Okay, so this is the site plan, the current site plan. And you'll see there at the top of the screen in the light red color or pink color, that is the courthouse site. And this talks about the different funding sources for this project. So the county is responsible for.
Is there any chance that we can turn that around where more people can see?
Colin? Or maybe face it
Everybody else is
face it
kinda
this
stuck
direction,
behind
yeah.
it.
We have the paper.
Yeah.
There we go.
Can everybody see now?
All right, I can even, the pointer even works. Okay, well, this will help everybody understand what's going on. So as I mentioned, here on the top, that is the county courthouse site. Basically, here's Mimosa Street. We have,
Can you move over here?
sorry, Concho Street over here, Live Oak, and Magnolia. Thank you. So basically, this is the block that the previous courthouse was on, and that's going to be parking. And the area in the green is one of those, is the Celebration Plaza, the community building, which is right here. Celebration Plaza, community building, and then this is the parking area for really all three buildings. And that is covered by a separate funding source through the CDBG, DR, and the GLO funding. And then the city's portion is down here, the half block that they just recently purchased. So that is the city hall, and they're also taking care of the drainage improvements up through Concho Street right there. And this is a little bit of a more of a rendered site plan showing the current configuration of the buildings. And I do want to mention too that we've also been working hard this last month and a half with Broadus, and they have a couple of representatives here in the room. Colton Wood over on the side back over there, and Michael Bishop back in the back. So they are the construction manager agent. And that's really been our focus this last month and a half since they've been on board, is to make sure that we're in budget, make sure that this is a project of a size and scope that the county can afford. So we've really been focusing in on the courthouse project there. So as you see here, as I mentioned, Celebration Plaza. So all three buildings front on the plaza, and the water's over on this side over here. For the courthouse, there'll be a parking area in the back for elected officials, and then there'll be a sally port here for bringing prisoners back and forth from the jail to get them to court. Community building here in the middle, and City Hall, as I mentioned.
Paul, can we ask questions as we go on?
Yes, sir. Feel free.
We can't.
We can't? Okay.
Item number 9, we can come back.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, well, don't leave the building.
All right, we won't. We'll stay here and wait. So this is the current first floor plan. The front entrance here is going to face the plaza, so you'll come into a main central lobby. The functions on the first floor include the district clerk, county clerk, and each of their public windows. We have the Justice of the Peace Court here with their public windows as well. Indigent care here in the middle, and Veterans Affairs. And then we also have a office area for IT and maintenance near the server room. And then the second floor includes the district court.
I'd say that Justice Base Courtroom would also be the Commissioner's Court.
Yes, sir. That's the current plan is that the Commissioner's courtroom and the JP courts will share that space on the first floor.
Okay.
And then on the second floor, the district court, county court at law in their spaces, the district county attorney over in that corner. We have up in the upper right, that's portion of the county court of law, the judges chambers and jury assembly, human resources, county treasurer, county judge, and auditor on the second floor. And now I'll let Larry Ursick with Architectus speak about the exterior elevations.
Thank you, Paul.
Hello, I'm Larry Ursick with Architectus. I'm working with PJL on the design of the exterior envelope of the courthouse. And you know, the courthouse really conveys the symbolism of strength and stability in the community. And that's what we're trying to convey here in this courthouse design. You know, traditionally, courthouses always have at least one prominent facade at the entry. Sometimes opposing sides are prominent, and occasionally you also get the courthouses that are in the center of the square that have 4 facades that are very similar or identical. This building faces onto the plaza. And, you know, we're doing this design also in context of the Heritage District guidelines, which I have to say are really wonderful guidelines. And they're written very well for the civic downtown core of Rockport for this project. Some of those qualities I do want to talk about are that the main entry faces onto the plaza, which we've done on this project. We also have to have a central vertical feature at the entry that's prominent. It conveys the identity of civic architecture, which we've done. We've also flanked that entry with some arcades on both sides that are covered to provide shade and access to the entry. And then there's also some horizontal and vertical articulation that's kind of moved in the facade to pronounce the front entry and also the corners of the building. As far as materials, the guidelines call out for masonry. That can be a brick, stone, 3-coat stucco. What we're indicating right now, this is on the schematic design, is that the base could either be a masonry or a shellcrete, kind of the historic looking material that was developed here in Aransas County. The upper portions of the building being stucco. And then, you know, another prominent feature is the overhanging, you know, canopy or soffit of the roof. Roof is shown as a standing seam roof right now. And, you know, we really see a wonderful, colorful soffit on this building too that's going to be very identifiable and, you know, trying to make a courthouse identity here that's really unique to Aransas County and Rockport. Another feature, besides also the strong circular semicircle entry, is a clock face, which we're envisioning is a large piece of glass that actually is illuminated at night from the back. Go through a few more slides here. This is the east side looking towards the water. There's also a balcony here at the corner. That's actually the northeast corner. Once again, arches similar to the front, although these are just inset arches. They're not arcades. This is the west facade, very similar to the east. And then the north facade. Then we also have some 3D imagery just to kind of get a feel for it. We still have a lot of development to do in the project and also the plaza design and the landscaping, but we've presented some imagery here to help give you some 3D looks of the building to get a feel for the sense of scale. Great, and I think Paul's going to talk about the schedule.
Sir. So where we are in the schedule, we're, I guess, right smack in the middle of 2020 right there. So hopefully with acceptance of this this design today, we can move forward into design development and construction documents with the bidding and negotiation and completion of construction documents first quarter of next year. So that is our presentation for today, and we'll take your questions later in item 9.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very informative. I gotta find out where I am. All right, under consent items, we have 5.
Judge, I'd make a motion to approve the consent items.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Now, back up, item number 9. Discussion on what we just heard from the team, long-term recovery and Pago Dexter. So, Commissioner Smith, you had a question?
Yeah, but I was, not for Mr. Whitson.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, Paul. In looking at the site plan, I'm showing here that parking for 200, actually 215 spaces, that's all on the old site for the county courthouse, right?
That's correct.
Would that serve both buildings?
Yes, that's the plan for that to serve both buildings.
And that
There is-
meets the county standards, I mean, the city standards for
That's
parking
all.
spaces?
We also have the parking lot north of that one too. That's not on that. Okay.
Yes, we've done a preliminary review of the parking standards and we feel we're within the guidelines. That hasn't been reviewed by the city as of yet, but we are double checking that as we move along through design.
Just so I'm on the same page with you, the city's only providing for about 33 spaces down there on their property, is that right?
Yes, again, that's mostly for
Staff.
their staff and elected officials as well.
But all the rest of the parking spaces will be on county property, is that correct?
On county property, but yeah, that the community building, the plaza and the parking area are all envisioned as being shared spaces by the city.
I'm just
and the
worried about
county.
the parking.
What's that?
I
Yes.
understand the site plan.
Yes,
I'm just worried about the parking
I
side.
understand.
Would probably be a good idea to, on your plan, draw the existing parking lot north of Mimosa Street. on
I
this
agree.
plan, Because it's not drawn on the.
Yeah, that's more.
Because
Yes, sir.
I would assure you, we have quite a few county employees that are going to be also using that parking facility right there. Just want to make sure that
Agreed.
there's enough parking for the public to come down.
Yes.
This is the public's house.
Right, and we do need to make sure that on those jury call days that
Exactly.
and we've done that and run into that for other courthouses as well.
I don't really think the 218 spaces is going to handle the problem, is what I'm saying. So I don't know how much in the other parking lot what the capacity there would be.
The other county parking lot that Commissioner was mentioning, and that's going to be mostly dedicated for county employees. And I don't know how many spaces you think it'll be, John, but it's quite a bit.
Quite a few on that lot.
Just be a nice number to have just to make sure, because I think, Judge, how many employees we have in this building? Over 115 or 20?
Somewhere along in there.
So there goes half of those spaces right there. Then on a jury pool day, you've got even more than that.
And I kind of question, I think that you should, the courtroom that I just heard is going to be Commissioner's Courtroom 2, that's labeled Justice of the Peace. Maybe
Yes,
you
sir.
ought to label that on here more to that. And
Okay.
I was kind of curious, the offices surrounding that, because, you know, the JPs currently are both in the courthouse. And I don't remember the number.
50,000.
50,000. Once we reach 50,000, JPs have to move into their precincts, and we have to go back to 4 instead of 2. So I think, you know, we're building something for a long-term process that, you know, we probably need to be thinking that maybe we need to go ahead now and move one of those JPs to their precinct.
Okay.
To fluctuate some of this deal. The other comment that I had, where you make it where the front of the building is on the plaza, when you look at the views, if you're on the street, it's kind of looking like you're looking at the back of your house to me. You know, if you're driving down the street, you basically have to get in and walk into the plaza to get the effect of the front of the building. If you're passing by or going around the block, it's like you're looking at the back door. I don't know if there's any way to tweak that to where you have more of a roadside appeal, because when you come into most towns and you come around the square where the courthouse is, you're looking at the front of it. You're not looking at the back end.
Right. Well, that's part of the approach that we've been taking to this, is that these 3 buildings, since they're all in the same, in close proximity to each other, we want them all to have the same or a similar architectural language to relate to each other, because the city will be able to use the community building, as will the county. So that's why it's positioned where it is in between the 2. And in working through the site plan and thinking about how they can relate to each other, we thought that having that plaza for the county and the city and, the citizens of Rockport to use would be most beneficial. So that's the approach that we took to the site planning and the design, but we can certainly look at some other ideas for you.
How confident are you that the square footage that we're talking about, how far out do you think that puts us from, I think normally you build a courthouse, hopefully to last 100 years.
Yeah. Well, when we talked
The
to,
growth rate we're looking at in the area now,
when we talked to all the departments, we projected out 20, 30 years into the future in terms of the number of staff members, their needs. We did have to reduce some square footage here to make sure that we're meeting the budget, but we also are planning for a potential future addition either to the north or to the west on this building. So as the county grows, that you can at some point in the future add on to the building.
Besides that, Commissioner, the JP court area is quite large, but by the time they need to move out, the courthouse will need to expand into that for other offices and things that are needed at that time. Is what we were thinking.
I just, to me, 50,000 isn't that far off.
No, 15,000 away, maybe.
50,000 isn't that far off to be putting somebody in the courthouse that'll have to be moved out in that period of time.
Gotcha.
Paul, one other question, while we're talking about that, the elevation of the first floor level above sea level. How far up in the air are we?
We are about 6 feet above natural grade. So the finished floor is planned to be at elevation 12.
First floor at 12.
First floor is at 12, and we're working with Brandy and Jerry back here with JSA and Brundrit.
The interior heights of
Yes,
the floors, the ceiling to, how high are those?
We're planning on about a 16-foot floor-to-floor height. And we found that so that would be structure to structure. And there will be varying ceiling heights within the first floor and the second floor, higher in the lobbies and lower back in the
In the
staff areas.
courtrooms, they'll be at least this high.
This is pretty tall. This is taller than 16 feet, but
Since both courtrooms are located on the second floor, though, you could actually incorporate going up.
we could incorporate higher ceilings on the second floor, yes.
What is the roof material?
was
What
that
is the
again?
roof material on this building?
The roof material on the building, we have standing seam metal for the pitched roofs that you saw in the renderings. There will be a section of low slope roofing, probably a modified bitumen low slope roof in the middle where we have mechanical units. We're going to have rooftop units on the building.
Yes,
Do
sir.
you have substantially better acoustics than in this room?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo, you had a question on this item.
She didn't hear you.
On number 10.
Well, no, you wanted to talk about the presentation. This is.
Councilman Yon, that was for tomorrow, and
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if Tracy misunderstood my.
All right. Okay. All right. And
Okay.
anyone else?
I do. Couple of things. First of all, if the employees are going to park in the back, and that's fine, everything, where's your rear entrance? How's your rear entrance look?
So that parking area that you see in the back of the courthouse would be for elected officials and judges.
Now, I'm not talking about the ones in the courtyard necessarily, but, or
Okay.
in the back of the courtyard, but we have that other parking area that Commissioner Cashline was
Okay,
talking about.
on the block of the previous courthouse.
Okay.
Gotta be a wall.
Of course, we have to be, ADA compliant and everything like that,
Correct.
but are they going to be able to enter in from the rear of the courthouse? It's because
I think what we will have, I think they'll be entering in from the front of the courthouse with
so they'll
the
have to walk
public.
all the way around the courthouse.
Either that, or they could enter where the mail room is.
There would be a side entrance for the employees.
Okay, because you get
They
200.
don't have to walk all the way around. He was talking about the public access.
Oh, no, I'm just talking about, for employees.
So,
yeah.
no, so,
So they're there every day.
yes.
Okay.
And there'll be ramps and steps coming up from the parking area in the back as well as in the front.
Okay, now,
For ADA.
in your rendering here, how is that handicap accessible? Is it low enough to be where you can take a wheelchair in or some sort of railing assistance or something like that?
There's a ramp. There'll be, to get that 6-foot elevation, we may raise the plaza a little bit to be able to shorten the length of the ramp, but there will be a ramp in the front and ramps in the rear for both the Sally Port and the judges and elected officials parking areas.
Okay, and also on level 1, we have the entrance, and then we have the door. In the event of that we need security there,
Yes.
are you going to have like a desk for security? Is there going to be a place for a security guard? Because
Yes.
I think also whenever we get to a certain population, we're required to do that.
Correct. Yeah. There will be plenty of room in the front area there. And we're designing it in such a way that if you wanted to enclose that and make it kind of a vestibule, an entrance vestibule, and have another kind of layer of security there, we could do that.
And also, how big is the Justice of the Peace Commissioner's Courtroom? How big is it? Is it this big?
It's not as big as this, no.
Is it half as big as this?
Probably. I can get you the numbers on
Okay.
the
You
square
look around
footage of
and see
that.
what, one of the problems we had in the old courthouse was the fact that the courtroom's too small.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get back in that because, as we go into more and more population, I mean, I've got nearly 1,000 RV spots and mobile homes and
Right.
raised things in my precinct that's looking to be within the next 2 to 3 years.
Gotcha.
I think to have a commissioner's courtroom any smaller than what we have here or significantly smaller than what we have here is a problem.
Okay. Well, we can definitely look into that. We did, in some of the initial programming discussions, we talked about, the number of people that we needed to accommodate. But we do need to revisit that.
Paul,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Castline mentioned possible expansion in the future. Would that be to the east?
North.
No, to be to the west or to the north.
North,
So there was a thought about enclosing and covering that parking area in the back there with a second floor kind of over the top, or potentially a 2-story addition to the west.
To the west,
Yes.
into the parking area?
No. The west is, I don't know if I can bring up the,
What would be the problem if you're talking about Magnolia Street bordering that on the east side?
yes,
I'm not sure about that property that's there. There's nothing on it at this
on
point
the
in
opposite
time.
side of Magnolia.
Yeah, the other side.
HEP product.
Yeah, in other words, rather than destroy the aesthetics of this building, what about just building another potential structure that looks a lot like it for additional administrative space in the future? Has that been considered at all?
Only takes some money.
I
That
understand
hasn't
that.
been
I-
discussed to this point.
We have discussed designing the facility in such a way that we could go up another floor on the existing footprint. But again, that's all a function of budget.
Right.
So those are the constraints.
I'm pretty sure that neither the judge nor I, or probably anybody else on this court, is going to be here 30, 35, 40 years from now. I think that's a really good thing to bet on right there.
Yeah, pretty good.
Can you kind of go over what was the cost? Originally, we were talking about 3 stories.
Yes.
What's the difference in the cost from
Like we-
coming to
we
3
cut
to 2? Can you
We
tell
cut,
us?
we cut down 10,000 square feet, right?
We cut
That's-
down,
Consequently, the
much?
consequently, the courtrooms are smaller.
We've been value engineering this project, working very hard to stay within the envelope of the funding we felt was available and reasonable to the county. If you want to increase that, then that's your prerogative. But the team has been working hard to get it within the envelope that we felt like was.
But I
we had
think,
available.
one of your major goals need to make sure that we don't build something we outgrow a long time before.
In 5 or 10
It's
It-
like,
It has been a struggle, Commissioner. I can't pull your leg on that. I mean, but we've just been working hard to stay within the budget constraints.
Well, at what point, because I share Commissioner Cashline's concern because I see what's going on in my precinct right now. And I think we're going to be at 50,000 a lot sooner than we anticipate. And, at that time, we may have, of course, we can get more space by moving the JPs out into, into their precincts. And at that time, we'll have to move them into the precincts. So that's some, but your county clerk and your, our trials, our need for juries have increased 40% in the last 3 years, and that's not going to go down.
Mhm.
And so forth. So I can see the need to either go ahead and design it so that we can go up a 3rd level, or, start thinking about, building another one and get at least the plans on the way and to be available in 5 to 7 years.
Again, Commissioner, staff has been working within the constraints
Right, no, I
we see.
understand that.
But if you and the public say, hey, we need a little more horsepower here, we're up to the task. This is the point in time in the process that you would make those kinds of decisions and give that
Right.
direction.
I agree.
And, that's why we're coming forward, is so that you understand where we are, what we're trying to achieve. And if we need direction to, address these matters, then that's why we want this feedback.
because if, like I say, once we have 50,000 and the JPs would have to move, the only other alternative might be that when we redistrict, we make all 4 precincts meet in the middle of the courthouse.
I would just say this, that right now, the plan that we have in front of you is pretty good for the next 10 to 15 years. Beyond that, we see additional growth. And if you wanted to plan in extra resources to, adjust for these factors, now would be the time that we would get that direction. So
How much, about what would it increase the cost per square foot if we went to a third story overall?
I don't know if it's dollar for dollar, but right now we're looking at somewhere between $398 and $399 a square.
You'd have to beef it up to do that. I think as long
Yeah,
as
that's what I'm
we have a
thinking.
future plan from a ground standpoint, Commissioner, to be able to move certain administrative functions into another building.
Yeah.
That would be the thought process rather than totally redesigning what we have here. To me, that
And-
would make more sense.
And
But I think we would have to lock up some of that property down there. And we've done that before. As a matter of fact, the piece of property right now that we're building this on, the Commissioners Court acquired that 12, 14 years ago.
right.
And that was a good plan at that point because we needed it in order to satisfy it. But I will also point out that in the year 2005, 2006, the forecast then was for by the year 2025, we'd be at 50,000. Well, sometimes that just didn't work, did it?
Well,
Somehow it didn't
no,
work.
but at that time.
A couple
too-
more storms, we may not need all that anyway.
Well, but at that time too, Commissioner, we didn't have ExxonMobil and all the development at the thing.
Well,
I'm just concerned that I'm not saying that we need to change anything right now,
Yeah,
but we need to
okay.
have a
Fair
plan.
enough. I think we need
so
to,
that we can
I think
go to
a
that.
ground plan, a site plan is probably more in order than anything else.
Probably
Yeah.
so.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hurd can tell you, we cut some of her square footage out too, which.
And that's what I was just gonna say. I realize this isn't a final plan. I'm hoping this isn't, my space just isn't quite sufficient. I believe with tweaking it will be. We've got to have my vault attached to me right now. It's down a secure hall, or it just doesn't work. I believe it can work, but we're still too small. I can't speak for any other departments, but before you decide, let's make sure that the space is sufficient for all of the people. I know we've been through it. But that would be my request, just let's hold off and make sure that it works for everybody and there's room to grow.
Are we required, Pam, are we required to have two vaults, one for the county clerk and one for the county
Yes,
treasurer?
we have separate.
Two separate
Yes.
vaults,
They could join back to back if they needed to.
but they have to be separated.
They have to be, well, yes, because the county clerk's in charge of hers, I'm in charge of mine. Very different things happen in each of those vaults.
Exactly.
They have to be available.
And they're different types of records too.
Yes, and they have to be, those are ones that have to be restored as well as, and the public has to have access to those. They have to be adjacent to our office with an opening into it. So again, I'm certain it can be fixed, but I'm just saying it's not quite ready yet. Don't please just not do this to us.
Hey Pam, why wouldn't you do it like in the old courthouse, the county clerks, basically the front door, the whole room was a vault.
Yeah. And
The
you can
front
do that
door,
with
when
us
you
too.
locked it, was,
Yeah, you could do that with us too. The problem is they pieced us down around. We need to be in one spot. Right now, there's 8 of us. There's only a planned space for 7. I actually have one more with the court administrator that's there once a week. So I need at least 9 desks and that doesn't plan anything. So it's, again, I believe we can deal with it. We need a little more space and we need it organized to how we need it. And I can't speak for the other departments, but I'm pretty sure that they have some input on that
Yeah.
too. Valerie, did you have something? I don't believe that I have enough space that goes here.
All right, since we're talking about enlarging everything, why don't we talk about how we're gonna finance this? Mr.
There you
Henderson,
go.
you're here. Everybody wants a bigger space. We did have a 55,000 square foot. And we found out, quite frankly, we couldn't afford it at what we thought the people wanted to spend. If we want to spend more, we can do it. And Mr. Henderson's got the answer to how much.
well, Judge, take you back in time a little bit. A few years ago, when we initially started thinking about a new courthouse before the storm, the judge and I and another group went to what was then one of the newest courthouses in the state of Texas, was in Zapata, Texas. The first thing we found out when we went in there was the day it was open,
Was too small.
it was too small. So I kind of have that ingrained in my mind. There's no use spending the money we're going to spend
Okay,
if we don't spend it wisely. So,
all right. That opens up another can of worms. Come on up, Mr. Henderson.
Go for it.
We're gonna spend the money.
You know, I don't know.
Thank you, Judge and Commissioners Court. For the record, my name is Robert Henderson. I'm a managing director with
We're
RBC
skipping
Capital.
actually from number 9 to 19 because he's on 19. So we're talking, that's why we can do that. Go ahead.
I'm very excited to be here, even as a taxpayer, in addition to as a consultant to the county. It's exciting to see the work that the long-term recovery team has accomplished and the amount of money we've been able to get without having to borrow any money at all. Per the direction of yourself, Your Honor, I had the opportunity to look at the finances of the county in terms of what its existing debt load valuation is and the rapidity with which you're paying that debt off. We also have identified a refunding savings we can refund about $3.5 million. Johnny will like this. Refund about $3.5 million from 4% down to about 1.5% and save about $427,000. When you put all of these things together, the preliminary budget that William showed the court, less the cash available of about $9,950,000 left at Delta, including monies for the micro hospital and the hazard mitigation improvements on those 3 or 4 roads, of about $14,250,000. Sounds like a big number, but Aransas County's got a very modest amount of debt, and what debt they do have is structured very short. I was very excited to come here today and say we can do $14,250,000. Are you listening, Mike? For no tax rate increase at all. That's how strong the county is in this environment. Of course, we know the interest rates in the market is very low. We saw Fort Worth sell interest debt, 20-year debt for less than 2%. So it's a great time to issue debt in terms of interest rates, and the structure of the county's existing debt gives you a lot of latitude. So we're hearing a lot of discussion about maybe spending a little bit more money, needing to spend more money. And I think it's I'm a long-term planner. You don't want to have what happened in Zapata County happen. You open it up too small. Mr. Woodson talked about $10 million to go back to 55,000 feet from the 40, I think it is 8,000 you're at now. $10 million on top of this plan would cost about 1.6 cents. Your INS tax rate today is 5.3 cents. For less than 7 cents on the INS tax rate, we could do another 10 million. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying to give the community a sense of the magnitude. That $10 million would be less than 1.7 cents on your tax rate. The first $14,250,000 is no tax rate impact at all.
You know, earlier in the discussion, I know that Mr. Woodson pointed out that we needed more space because of growth in the court system, for instance, crime. But I would point out that probably the largest single reason why we need more space today comes from the city of Austin. At the state capitol building, I might add, every time that legislature meets, they come up with additional requirements that require more employees to top. And guess what? They don't fund that at all. It's an unfunded mandate. I've talked about this issue before many, many times. I don't know how long it's going to take for these folks up there to get the idea that they need to curtail some of that stuff. But it does put a lot of pressure on planning at this level down here. There's no doubt about that.
All right. Now that you know, we can go back to 55,000 square feet and lots of room for everybody for pennies on a dollar.
Not necessarily advocating that we go up higher, but I think for our money, if we want to go cheap, my alternative, we can buy this whole shopping center for way less than than the new plan we're talking about and moving here. But if the people in town want a nice new courthouse, I think we should have one adequate for a long time to
I
come.
agree.
Yeah.
We were just trying to come up with a figure that we thought.
Well, we've had a lot of good
community
news
would-
since y'all first started this value engineering in terms of interest rates, in terms of your debt structure, in terms of the refinancing. We could pull all the savings of the refinancing, because one of the things I think is important for the community to know is your net outstanding debt service on an annual basis is going to fall from $1.4 million this fiscal year. In just 4 years, it falls to $800,000. So when we talk about maintaining the 5.3 cent existing INS tax rate, that's just for 4 years, and then it's going to fall to under 5 cents anyway. So you've got a great opportunity. Now, one thing I want to say, I know there's going to be a meeting tomorrow to discuss these plans further. The agenda number 19, which I think you move forward, is to consider a notice of intent to issue certificates of obligation. That notice has been designed at $14,250,000. But what's important to know about that is that two things. Number one, that $14,250,000 is a not to exceed number, and we can change that number today. We could change that number to whatever you wanted to change it to $20 to $24 million. It does not commit the county to issue $24 million worth of debt. It just gives a notice of intent to issue up to $24 million. The second, what that allows us to do is to stay on the timeline that is also part of the package that's been distributed. The most recent legislative session increased the notice period from 30 days to 45 days. So we need to get this done before you set your tax rate, obviously in September. So we can go ahead for today's purposes, increase the amount of money on the not to exceed figure. And then tomorrow in the workshop or whatever form of meeting you're going to have, you can discuss refining these numbers.
What was the ballpark number on going back to the 55,000 square foot?
10 million.
$10 more million.
10 more million to go up another 10,000 square feet? Is
Doubling there.
that right? $1,000 a square foot?
Yeah, give us a little time to get you an exact number by tomorrow, but, it's going to be in that ballpark.
Bob, can I ask, Bob, can you elaborate? My first impression is that it's kind of seems like an urgency to get this approved to do the COs. I'm assuming from your last comment that it has to do with us setting our tax rate for the coming year. Can you elaborate on
Yes,
that
sir.
a little bit?
Yes, sir. On the original page, there's a timetable of events. The state law has been recently amended that requires us to publish a notice of intent to issue in the local newspaper twice, the first time being not less than 45 days before you actually meet to sell the debt. You have a regular meeting, and the state law also requires that the certificates be approved at a regular meeting of the court. It can't be a special meeting of the court, and you have to have a super quorum. It doesn't have to be approved by a super quorum, but you have to have a super quorum in attendance. In order to meet your regular meeting in August the 31st, we need to publish the first notice day after tomorrow, July the 15th. And we've already pre-submitted it to the paper for that purpose. The paper was very cooperative with us. We can pull it today, we can change it today, but it's already been pre-submitted. So then we sell them on August the 31st, and you come back at your meeting in September to actually set the tax rate. So it's what makes it critical is not the money, it's the timing of the notices and your schedule of your regular meeting dates.
So do we have to have the money authorized before we ever sign a contract building the courthouse to whatever level we decide? My way of thinking is maybe we don't need the money in the CO even in the next year. We have funds.
You'll need it by the time you bid and you're negotiating a contract. So
Well, that's kind of what I'm trying to get straight, because
probably March, April timeframe next year.
So Bob,
I can't practice law without a license, and I don't have one, okay? But I will tell you that my experience is that lawyers have generally advised that before you sign contracts, you need to have,
You got all the money.
you got to have the money. And the other thing is, of course, we can't be sure where interest rates are going to be at budget time next year. And this is a great time to issue that debt.
Well, there's never a time whenever, or very rarely a time whenever you pay less by putting something off than you do by doing it now, except in high interest rates. Well, the interest rates are not high.
Right.
So my initial thought is that we had an original plan of the 7,000 square feet or whatever, and we need to revisit that. Or we need to, or as Commissioner Smith said, we need to immediately try to find some additional areas that we could, do this all at the same time. Because they're not, whenever it went 3%, remember whenever it went 3%, we said it's just never going to go lower.
No.
But it's gone lower.
Yeah, it has.
But it's not going to get much lower than 1.5% or 2%, whatever it is. It just can't, unless they're going to pay us to borrow money.
Well, and I go back to the discussion that I heard from the court is a valid discussion. Do you want to spend $20 million on a courthouse, and that's what you're spending? You're getting $9.5 million of it through these other sources, but you're spending $20 million on a courthouse. Do you want to spend $20 million on a courthouse that's going to be too small when you open it up?
Bob, just so that everything's clear, if we were to today tell the newspaper, change the notice in the newspaper, say not to exceed 24,250,000, that doesn't commit us at this time, but it gives us the leeway and flexibility to go through the problem.
Yes, sir. You have not committed the county until you come back on August the 31st and approve a definitive sale of the certificates of obligation. And if the number turns out to be whatever it is, some number between 14 and 24, whatever the number is, that's what you're committed to.
So the problem before us today is simply, if we make a decision to keep our options open up to the higher number, it's simply just keeping an option open.
It's a housekeeping chore, yes, sir.
Fair enough.
All right.
Just got to make sure Mike explains it properly in the newspaper.
Thank you, Bob.
That being said, we're on, Ms. Russo, you had a question on item 19.
Oh, I was curious what the certificates of obligation were to be issued for, and that has been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're on that agenda item. Does anybody?
Judge, I would make a motion to seek $24 million.
24,250?
Yeah, 24,250.
I think the motion shouldn't say to seek 24 million. I think the motion should be to put a notice in the newspaper with a maximum amount not to exceed 24
I'll
million.
second that motion.
Okay, you made the motion.
Thank you.
Who made the You did, right? And he
I
seconded.
corrected his motion.
He made the motion.
All right,
All right, just one question of direction for the staff. We have always been focused on value engineering and driving the cost down and getting the most we
Appreciate
can
that.
for the dollar. So I'm assuming, even though we have the leeway, your direction still is to value engineer this project and get the most bang for the buck.
and get the room that's needed in the building.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Was that 24,250 or just 24?
24,250.
That's a couple of million for you and a couple of million.
All right, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. All right, let's go back to item number 10. Update and discussion on the county's application for workforce development entrepreneur center through the Economic Development Administration.
Thank you, Judge. Right, today we're going to give an update on the Workforce Development Center and Entrepreneur Center and the findings of the Exploratory Committee. Later in the agenda, we have for your consideration a resolution authorizing staff to submit an application.
Well,
Okay. I thought it would be helpful, especially for public purposes, just to kind of talk about this journey that we're taking for economic development for a minute and to show how this Workforce Development Center and Entrepreneurship Center fits into that whole picture. So starting out, we want to talk about we had established some economic development goals. We wanted to improve the well-being of the economy here locally, especially for recovery. And we were very careful to say that we want to promote sustainable business. Our first number one priority is to retain the existing business. Secondly, it's to help those businesses expand. Third is creating new businesses. And then also there's also a appropriate role where we can help with business productivity, and that is through workforce development. We also said that we wanted to diversify our economic base and last but not least importantly, improve the quality of life. So there's different tools that we can use in order to accomplish that. One of the ways of doing that is having a pipeline of educated workers to be able to meet future and existing businesses. We can also, of course, grow our own businesses, which is the entrepreneurship aspect of the project, and also improve business climate and some of the other assets that contribute to that, such as having proper highways and public infrastructure. Wanted to talk about a little bit about the environment that we're working on and where we stand. And one of the ways of doing that is looking at our current educational levels. For individuals that are 25 years and older, we have over 46% of our population that has a high school diploma or less. And so we have a real gap here in our goals as far as what kind of jobs we'd like to retain, what type of jobs we'd like to grow locally, and also how we're going to recruit businesses by having an adequate skilled labor force. One of the other things that we talked about in a key component is diversification. And if you look, this particular chart right here talks about employment by industry and what's been happening over the last year. And over the last year, we have had a 42% decline in the leisure and hospitality industry. But if you go back and look up earlier in manufacturing, trade, information, you can see although they've been hit, they've been substantially less hit. And so what this does is diversifying the skill sets of our labor force helps us to be competitive in those other areas in more high-paying jobs and stabilizes our economy. Here too, we have an interesting dynamic going on that is very atypical to the state. We have a median age of 51 in the community. And so what it's telling us, we're losing our youth. We're losing our youth that can be educated and their skills increased compared to the rest of the state. The rest of the state has a average median age of 34.8. And even so in the region, although we have a lot of retirees in the region, if you look at it, Aransas County is disproportionately older in our average age. So that provides two opportunities. One is to train up our kiddos that are coming up through the system and those that are underemployed. And it also allows for some of our older population for them to have retraining, and there's a lot of potential for that. Whoops, sorry. Don't want to spend too much time on this, but since 2016, and y'all are very aware of this, you hear about it all the time, we've had over $50 billion of new investment in the region. And one of the opportunities, we know that we don't want the heavy industry here locally. We have our own needs and our own target market, but there is a lot of spinoff that comes from those industries that we can attract for new businesses and expanding businesses. And we can hone in on training up our population to go for the higher paying jobs. We can make those decisions as we're developing our workforce development program. We know that there's some high paying jobs out there. One of the examples that I was given is GCGV has an average salary of $90,000. So we can hone in and target our training programs to target those jobs as well. So just generally talking about what is workforce development, it's coordinating our skills initiatives that we have to prepare individuals for current and future occupations, while at the same time providing businesses what they need to meet demands and to be productive. And more simply, we create, sustain, and retain a viable workforce. There's a number of things that would be accomplished through this program. We'd align local business needs with skills in the workforce. We would learn very specific marketable skills, be very targeted about that. We also would help with career advancement for our population. One of the things that needs to happen as part of this program is we need to get the word out. I'll tell you, when I was growing up, nobody really talked to me much about what careers are out there. And careers are changing very rapidly. And the training programs for them are keeping up. And so what we need to do is make everyone aware what's out there, what the opportunities are, because a lot of people just don't know what's out there that they might be interested in. We also need for lifelong preparation. Even though I have a job, I'd like to advance my job, or I'd like to get the skills to keep up with my job. One of the things that these programs do is it connects employers with the students, and they have apprenticeships and internships. This particular facility would also have an entrepreneurship program. We're uniquely positioned to have that. We have some retirees who are very, very talented, and we're involved with some high-tech, very desirable type of industries, and they can help through the entrepreneurship program with the training. And then, of course, we want targeted business types. So the need, and I'm going to go over this very quickly. We identified this need in our economic development plan that was adopted. We adopted it in our long-term recovery plan. We went through an extensive process that was facilitated by some regional partners and educators to figure out what would be best for our community and get that input. As a result of that, it was recommended that we have this workforce development center and to focus on what we call the team concept, which is technology, entrepreneurship, arts, and makerspace. So you have an exploratory committee that's been working very hard over the past few weeks to develop this project and to vet everything. They've substantially completed their work. They are recommending moving forward with the center and the grant. We kind of talked about some of the goals already, and so I won't reiterate those. They vetted the possibility of a co-location. And one of the things that we talked about was co-locating with the Dome, if we were to have that project. And we also looked at, would it be possible at the airport? The recommendation is that it be a standalone particular facility. The utilization doesn't really work as far as when you have the Dome, you have a lot of storage that needs to occur in that Dome to protect our equipment and personnel. And so they are recommending that it be a standalone site. We looked at the airport, and the more we find out about the airport, the harder it gets at the airport. FAA is very regulatory regarding use at the airport. They don't like the idea of the possibility of FEMA coming out to the airport and being in any of our buildings, even if it's on just a temporary basis. And then also, they are amenable to looking at things for business. So if you choose in the future to want to go out and reallocate some of the unutilized and ineligible land for airport use. There is a possibility of getting that land released for use for business recruitment if you so desire. It is a long process, and that's the other problem. We could be looking at 18 months to get that reallocation done. So what they're recommending, they also looked at existing buildings in the community as well as other sites. They're recommending that we pursue the Little Bay Elementary buildings. Originally, the cost that we were looking at was $5.5 to $6 million for the grant. We received some feedback from EDA that they're looking for lower level in cost. They'd like to have an average of $3 to $3.5 million for all of the grants that they fund. And so the committee is recommending that we apply for $4.5 million. They have vetted the building. They've done initial programming. They've looked extensively at all the different types of programs that we might want to offer, and have been able to work it into the $4.5 million range.
Kim, what's the time frame on this grant process?
I've got it in my PowerPoint. Just quickly to talk about who they found would participate in the programs. There would be high schoolers, young adults, those who are employed but want to improve their skill sets, those that are employed that don't have the skill sets that they need for the changing economy and the different types of jobs that are available. Some want to go back to the workforce, and we would love for that to occur, as well as we've got some lifelong learners. So the other thing that they found is workforce development programs are done with partnerships. It's not done by yourself. And so the committee engaged Del Mar College, as we mentioned in the last. They have gone through and established Del Mar has a full menu of programs, and they're always looking for developing new programs and are willing to work with the community on what we want to be able to offer. They also have established business relationships, which I was mentioning the apprenticeships and the internships. Other entities that we would be in partnership with is our new Economic Development Corporation. Of course, our local and area businesses, we've got to engage with them and find out what they're looking for. We have our talented local volunteers, especially for the entrepreneurship program, as well as we may have those that would provide teaching. We've got the Small Business Administration. We've already started discussions about the possibility of them bringing someone in once a week. We can't justify a full program, but maybe once a week, someone coming in to meet with potential local businesses. And we've also got our state network of workforce development. As I mentioned, we've met extensively to discuss what kind of programming is needed and what kind of educational programs we might have. And so here's just a initial list. It's not a comprehensive list of everything, but to give you a flavor, allied health and health science, things like geospatial technology, high-tech industrial technology, and public safety. And that comes in a lot of different forms. It can be through continuing education, dual credit, certifications, college credit, and the apprenticeships. The recommendation is for the facility to be owned by Aransas County, but operated, all the operations and operational expenses to be handled by Del Mar College, and we would have an agreement with them for that. The way that things would get paid for is the training costs. Del Mar has their tuition and regular fees, and they also have scholarships that are provided. They enter into partnerships with businesses and other industries to be able to fund some of their programs. What we're really looking at is nothing more than it's an expansion of what we've already got. The ACISD already partners with Del Mar to provide some of their dual credit programs, and what this is an expansion and extension of that. And then I did want to note, because a number of people are interested in this, we are in Del Mar's service area, but we are not in their taxing area. And that is a big difference. That's what allows them to come in and provide funding, but it does not allow for taxation. We have a whole paper on that that's been legally looked into. Anyone specifically interested in that, I'm happy to share. The due date on the application is at the end of this month. Then that goes to the EDA. They'll look at it for about 3 weeks. I'll work with their project liaison to review our application and refine it, answer any questions they might have. Then that project liaison takes it to a committee that will make a recommendation on funding. And we should know, it's quite possible to know after that meeting in August whether we're going to get funded or not. Sometimes they hold off to the next month, but it is possible to know by the end of August. We're projecting that the time frame on the outside, in order to develop the project and go through all of the hoops that are required with the federal programs, to be open within 24 months. That's putting in a pretty generous time frame for environmental, and environmental is what holds everything up for months. Yes, sir.
Kim, this, the grant that you're applying for, that's in the name of the county?
Yes, it is. There is a possibility that Del Mar would be a co-applicant. We're looking to see if that's necessary from EDA's point of view. If it strengthens it, we'll do that. Otherwise, they're just a partner by separate contract.
Let's assume that the county is successful in getting the contract. Going forward, the maintenance expenses on that particular piece of property and whatnot would fall on the county?
What you would do, that's what the contract with Del Mar is. All of our discussions have surrounded.
Let's assume that Del Mar for some reason doesn't come to pass. So now we've got a building here, and I'm just wondering, what is the county's obligation on maintenance on that particular piece of property?
Just like any other grant, you're required to maintain it.
So we would be responsible for the maintenance of it?
Yes, sir. And that's
Nobody
why our.
else but the county, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure I understood that.
Yes. And that's why we're trying to find and have located another partnership, because we know that you want to facilitate the project, but.
That brings up another question. Once we assume that we get the grant, we have how many days in order to accept the grant?
It's probably around 30 days.
30 days. So from the time that we get it till the time, can we do contracts tying up these other people that are going to come in and actually pay or assume their share of the maintenance cost on that building?
Sure. So what's going to happen is they'll make a recommendation. Hopefully it would be by August. Maybe it will be September. The Economic Development Administration. There's usually a lag of time for the contract to come forward. Last time it was at least a couple of months, if not more. So we would have between 2 and 4 months to be able to work out any kind of.
You have to sign and accept the grant?
Yes, sir. There's a delay. It takes them a little while to come out with the grant.
I just wanted to cover that issue.
Kim, in all of this and everything, I'm sure y'all have done some actual count of workers in the area. Can y'all get the figures of what was in the area and the employment issue from 2010 and what we project them to be in 2030? That's a 20-year period. And that goes back to our courthouse issue as well.
Right.
If it was 10,000 in 2010 and it's 60,000 in 2030, that's a real marker that we need.
Absolutely. Yes, we can get that information as follow-up.
By tomorrow?
We'll work.
Well, probably can.
Our resource has been workforce development and Del Mar for some of the statistics, but we can definitely work on expediting that.
The port also has some of those figures.
And some of the data that I presented was from the port. Yes, sir. Matching requirements, typically every other application I've ever seen, they've required 20 to 50% match. This is the only time that I've ever found that they have special provisions that we're allowed to apply without a match. And it's because the funding that's coming through is part of the CARES Act. And they're trying to allow communities to retool their economy, enhance their economy, make it more solid and diversified. And so this is a one-time offering that I'm aware of, that we have this opportunity to apply for no match. In reality, based on how we fund economic development now and within the foreseeable future, we would not be able to pursue a project like this. So the committee recommendation is to proceed with the grant application. I placed a resolution on this agenda to allow staff to go ahead and proceed to develop and submit an application for consideration. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Ms. Russo, you had a question?
Most of my questions, Judge, were answered by Kim's presentation. Would there be a possibility of getting a copy of that PowerPoint?
Putting all the PowerPoints on the website
As of what date?
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Right, Colin?
Yeah.
Yeah, you better ask Colin.
And in anticipation, we also submitted the presentation to the media as well.
Any other questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Kim. All right, thank you for your patience. Louise, come on up and give us your report.
Good morning. I guess out of respect for the court's time, I'm just gonna sort of skip over some of the slides and get to like the real meat of the presentation that I provided. As a recap, let me just tell you that in the month of April, our exhibit at the gallery was canceled, obviously, and we were also closed due to state orders. And so we had absolutely no exhibitions in the month of April. The same thing happened in the month of May. The exhibit that we had, the artists that were coming from different parts of the United States for a printmaking show decided not to come to our area because of COVID-19. So that exhibit was also canceled. Also in the month of April, we had a special event, and that is the Rockport Studio Tour, which is a tourism and economic development event. And that has been postponed. We're looking at a date, but with the number of cases rising in the state of Texas, we're going to give that consideration before a date is scheduled. And then everybody knows that we in July cancel the art festival out of concerns for the rise in cases in not only the state of Texas, but also in our county. As you know, that is a great tourism event, brings in 10,000 people through our gates. A lot more come to our area during the 4th of July weekend. And it's also a huge economic development boost for our community, estimated to bring in $2.5 to $3 million in dollars. So that said, it's a lot easier to tell you what we were able to do. And so in the month of July, we were able, in the month of June and July, we have been able to do our art education program. Colin, if you would just please turn to this slide. Oh, you can't? Okay. Oh, you don't have it. Okay. So I'm looking at the slide that says Art Educator Days. And so that was in the month of February, we were able to do that. In the month of April, we had to cancel our free family program. But in the month of June and July, we were able to host our art space summer art camp, which is the reason we fundraise. And so we have been serving children of Aransas County, 213 against 336 that were participating in 2019. What we did is we modified the sessions. We made the sessions smaller. We increased the number of staff serving the children. We did this in 2 different classrooms, different age groups, and then we were able to expand the sessions from 2 to 3 per day, and to be able to manage the program safely. So I now turn to attendance impact. I'm looking at this slide right here. And so I just would like to, tell you that I've submitted the data for April, May, and June of 2020. In the next slide, I've submitted the data for April, May, and June of 2019. And what you'll see is this, we've had a significant drop in visitation, primarily due to the fact that we were A, close in the month of April, and B, there's just been a lot of fear of people entering enclosed spaces like our gallery. But what we have noticed is that on the months that we were open in the month of May and June, visitation from major metro, that's Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, and San Antonio, is up as compared to last year. Mainly 29% in the month of May of 19 as compared to 43% in the month of May of 2020. The same can be said about the month of June of 19. We had 31% visitation from major metro as compared to almost 43% in the month of June of 2020. It's no secret that a lot of people from larger communities in our state are traveling to our area because, we had less cases here, and they were vacationing in our area, as well as the other data point that is significant to show is that visitation from beyond 75 miles of our area is up in the month of May to 63% almost, as compared to 49% the same period last year. And in the month of June, 65% as compared to about 63% in the same period last year. I'm now looking at a slide that is a annual visitation. It looks like this, and this is a snapshot for the entire year starting in June of 2019 and going all the way through May of 2020. We have had 27,000 visitors during that whole period. We are expecting that once we look at this snapshot data next year, that it's going to reflect a bit of a downturn. Finally, I'll turn to the part of the presentation that shows the expenditures. It looks like this. So we have received about $3,200, I'm sorry, in funding from the county to support our activities. And to date, we have spent $2,030.50 of those funds that we have received. We have continued, despite the fact that we have had so many cancellations and events affected, we have not slowed down our PR and marketing activities. Those have continued. We've taken all of the shows that we were going to have in April and May that were canceled, and the event that we're having in April that was canceled, and the July Art Festival that was canceled into the internet, and we've met that promotion with moderate success. And that's my presentation. Does the court have any questions?
Thank you, Luis. Appreciate everything you do for the county in these trying times. It's not an easy job.
Yeah. I would like to just add, Judge, that I know that probably the citizens and our officials are concerned about the survival of our nonprofits that do such a lot of work here. And I want to reassure you that the Art Center has positioned itself tremendously well. We have a very strong economy. We were able to raise funds in the month of July through our art auction, which was a great success. And you can expect to see us thrive for many years to come.
What's the status of the old grant for your new facility?
Oh, it's interesting to hear some of the conversation as you were talking with your architects, because we also have experienced similar challenges with the estimates, the early estimates from our contractor and the architect. So we had to reassess and rebalance our project, similar as you are doing. We are awaiting the approval of the EDA for us to relocate the Klein building. We've got a memorandum of agreement back to them on that. And so we're waiting. Once that is signed, then we should be able to begin the relocation of the building. And then soon after that, once that is completed, we should be able to do a groundbreaking. We also, one of the things that's pending is the addition of land around both of our sites that we have in the downtown area. And so we're following the Uniform Relocation Act for that acquisition. That is going very smoothly. And so we will be able to add the necessary land to be able to build the Performing Arts and Convention Center, which is in the northern lot. That requires more land in order for that building to be able to fit into that construct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion.
You have a good day.
Motion made. Do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Castleline. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Discuss, approve, disapprove acceptance of 15-foot drainage easement from Jacob Trapper at Lot 1, Block 4, Copanoke Code Subdivision, Unit Number 4, according to the plat recorded in Volume 3, page 46, Aransas County.
Anybody from Road and Bridge online?
Well, David, are you online? He's muted. That's one thing about these meetings.
Hello?
Judge, apparently the.
Hello?
Howdy.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, this easement, we had an opportunity to get it. It will drain Rattlesnake Point Road into the canal between Allen M. Parks and Ling. It is a free easement.
Cost $10.
I'm sorry,
second
it
it.
does
Motion
cost
made.
$10.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you, David.
Unanimous.
Don't go away.
Discuss, approve, disapprove concept plan for Ocean Reef subdivision development off State Highway 35 business south of Palm Harbor subdivision. Kat or David? Who's on this one?
This is Kat. I'm here.
All right. Got any
The
questions for Kat?
concept plan,
Anybody?
Yeah, Kat, is this going to be
sir.
served by the sewer line? It's going to
yes,
be
sir.
on sewer facility?
Yes, sir.
And the size of the
For
lots?
the city of Rockport.
What are the average? Yeah, what is the size of the lots in there?
The average size is between 5,000 and 7,000 square feet, I believe.
I don't think so. You've only got 10.8 acres.
Well, because they are going to have utility access with both public water and public sewer, there's no state limitation and there's no limitations on the lot size as long as it is done through subdivision approved by the Commissioners Court. So there hadn't been any concerns on any limitations based on those utilities, but the average size should be on the concept plans.
Kat, that's not my question. The plan that you've given me is so small and I can't read it. So what is the actual size of the lots?
1 moment.
What is that size?
I'm trying to remember. I believe they're 54 by 41 on the south.
About 2,000 square feet, is that what we're talking about? And what kind of buildings are going to be put on these?
These are
single family homes.
These are exact single family residences, identical in floor plan to the ones done at Coral Reef Cottages. The right of way and the lots are actually a little bit bigger than what was done at Coral Reef Cottages.
So the Coral Reef Cottages are the ones that are built up on the stilts?
Yes, sir. Yeah. These are all elevated with parking underneath. So the first floor will be up at,
And this is going to be located in between Palm Harbor and what?
And Bahia Bay.
Has there been any outreach or any problems from any of the neighboring subdivisions around there about that concept?
This went to, through the City of Rockport Planning, PUD, I'm sorry, the Planning and Zoning Commission 6 months ago probably. And there were no public comments, opposition at that point.
Is that on the incorporated area of Rockport?
It's ETJ. So when,
It's also on Aransas ETJ too.
So at the very beginning, year and a half ago, when we started this process, I asked Aransas Pass. They said, they bowed out of it, and the David Reed's office said, as long as we comply with the city's plating ordinance, because, the city could possibly annex that in. So we're complying with the city's PUD process. And then,
Have we gained any excess drainage from 35 toward the bay through the property, through the plat?
we are providing drainage easement along the north boundary. And then we've got, of course, detention ponds throughout, 2 detention ponds for the water quality as well.
Also, and going back to Commissioner Smith's question about sewer, y'all are putting a lift station in there capable of handling more than just that subdivision, right?
Correct. It's a master plan lift station in compliance with the City of Rockport's sewer master plan, and it's going to be deep enough and large enough to serve that whole sewer service area, Palm Harbor, Bahia Bay, across the highway, whoever extends the line.
Doesn't the city have some expansions more in the system, in the city, that they have to do to increase the flow of that line to its maximum potential? I thought they had some chokes, so to speak.
Not on that system.
In the line.
Not on that system. They have a reimbursement agreement, so if you tie onto it, because the city fronted the money to pay for that force main from Islands of Rockport into town, so.
Has a lot of people already bought into and gained access to the line?
Only Islands of Rockport and the lift station at Navigation District, and then the lift station at Coral Reef Cottages. They had to pay the reimbursement agreement. So this will be the next one. And it's got 850 units or something of available capacity. So this subdivision would be purchasing 95.
Well, and I think the grant that we have to put the lift station on 8th Street would also tie into that line.
I didn't know about that one.
I've been over this plan considerably, and I think it's pretty well done. I was concerned about not having cul-de-sacs, but Randy brought up the fact that it's less than 150 feet from a paved, maintained roadway, or concrete roadways, actually, to the farthest point, so that meets the fire requirements.
Right. It's connected on both sides. It connects to 35 Business, and then it connects to Ocean Drive. And those little stubs on the side are real short, so they don't require fire truck turnaround. So
it doesn't require sufficient size for a fire truck? Is that what you're saying?
On those side streets, those are real short stub out. So fire trucks don't go down.
Basically, the side streets are short enough to qualify as a turnaround. They could use them as a T-head. They're not long enough to require an additional turnaround point.
Another thing too about this particular PUD is that's going to be a concrete roadway. Kat, am I correct that it's a concrete roadway, and so it will not be a county road?
Correct.
Because we don't have any provision.
Private street.
Private street, public
Correct.
utility access.
So this is just the concept plan, the final plat, but you'll have to come back to us on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve as
Second.
presented.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Castelline. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Discuss, approve, disapprove amended order 03/2020 to amend infrastructure requirements for rental communities in Aransas County. Kat?
Yes,
Just
sir.
bring
this
us up
is-
to date on the changes.
This is to clarify that the minimum infrastructure requirements that are required as per our subdivision order are also required for a rental community, which is allowed for a county to do. So it's just to clarify that for roadways, for any type of utility or access infrastructure, a rental community will have to meet the same criteria as a subdivision for those life safety measures.
So they're going to have to be on a paved road, right?
Yes, sir.
Kat, how does that handle the flag lots?
As long as if someone was to subdivide their property in a manner that would have a flag lot, they would have to have that 50-foot right-of-way. If the internal roadway would be allowed to be unpaved, it would have to meet the minimum width and limestone compaction to accommodate a fully loaded, to accommodate emergency vehicles. So the interior roadways still have to meet a minimum standard to allow access for emergency responders, but the public, it has to connect to a public right-of-way that is paved, that is maintained.
Okay, thank you. I make motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Discuss, approve, disapprove, authorizing county judge to sign a county transportation infrastructure fund agreement with the state of Texas through the Texas Department of Transportation for eligible award of $152,394.
David, is this the continuation of the distribution?
It is.
Okay, fair enough. Make a motion to approve, Judge.
Motion made.
I'll second it.
Second, Commissioner Cheney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Discuss, approve, disapprove Resolution 21, 2020, a resolution recognizing the Rebuild Texas efforts to assist Aransas County and Christian Cornejo for outstanding leadership in this respect. And Christina, you online? Christina? She got tired, huh? All right.
Make a motion to approve, Judge.
Motion made.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. You don't have to read that. Discuss, approve, disapprove Resolution 22, 2020, a resolution designating authorized signatories for the Hurricane Harvey Infrastructure Community Development Block Grant Recovery Program.
Make a motion to approve.
Who are they? Judge and.
Judge and Alma, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Castleline. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Approve, disapprove Resolution 23, 2020, a resolution to adopt CDBG-DR program civil rights policies, citizens participation plan and grievances procedure, section 3, policy, excessive force policy, limited English policy, proficiency, standard plans, section 504 policy, and grievance procedure code and conduct policy, and fair housing policy.
Move to approve.
Second.
This is a standard thing with these grants that you have to allow for those things.
Question on this, Judge.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this a new set of policies or a revised set of policies that have been in effect and you just do this on an annual
Every,
or periodic basis?
every
Do it every-
grant you have to, it's a thing required by the USDA when you're doing one of their, on every single grant, you have to, several things that you have to make sure included in that specific grant
but-
And
process.
these are ones we have been doing in the past. Thank you.
One's required by USDA.
Required for grant money.
We had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, item 20, discuss, approve, disapprove resolution 26, 2020, a resolution for Aransas County, Texas, authorizing the submission of Public Works Economic Adjustment Assistance Program grant application, including CARES Act funding, the Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, and authorizing the county judge to act as the county's executive officer and authorized representative of all matters pertaining to the county's participation in the EDA program.
One quick question, Kim, when this comes back, does it have to be voted on to approve it? Accept the grant? Okay, so it'd have to come back to the court for acceptance of the contract. Make a motion to approve.
Motion made
Second.
and seconded. Any discussion? Ms. Russo?
I had questions and Ms. Bounce answered them earlier with her presentation. Thank you.
Trying to get caught up with all these resolutions.
Did we vote on that?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Keeping me on track. Discuss, approve, disapprove, authorize county judge to sign a contract agreement with Randy Bingham, East PA, inmate healthcare service provider.
Are there any
We do every
changes?
year.
There's no changes in from the previous contract?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Discuss, approve, disapprove June 2020 indigent healthcare report. There you go.
The total expenditures for the month was $43,911,
That's
but we did recoup $38,293 in reimbursements for past expenditures. The total that we have spent year to date is $421,717.91, puts us at right under 4% of our gross revenue tax levy.
It's for 10 months.
Tracy,
10
was that
months.
was that copy in our packet?
Should have been.
I don't see it in mine.
I have an extra copy if you want it.
Jack?
Somebody's barking.
Any questions?
So what are we on track for to go to the end of August?
We've got basically 2 more months, but we also have some reimbursements still yet to come in, so we're good sitting at 4 to 4.5%.
So that would be roughly a little more than half of what we had budget.
Yes, sir.
Somebody make a motion to approve?
You did. Motion.
Oh, did I already?
Cheney, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Jack?
More?
Approve, disapprove, authorize the county judge to sign up optional healthcare services notification with indigent healthcare services for the fiscal year January or September 1st, 2020 to August 31st, 2021.
This is something that's normal and routine.
Yes.
Right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner
Thank you.
Castleline. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Discuss, approve, disapprove new job description for records clerk. No new monies.
Is this from the sheriff's department?
Yeah.
Was it budgeted?
It's a job.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Cheney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Discuss the 2 methods for calculating the voted approved tax rate and direct the Aransas County tax assessor collector as to which method to use. Number 1, for Texas Property Tax Code, Section 2604, voter approval tax rate equal no new revenue maintenance and operation rate or current debt rate plus unused increment rate. Boy, that's taxed up. For Texas Property Tax Code, section 26.04 and section 26.07, voter approval tax rate equal no new revenue maintenance and operation rate times 1.08 current debt rate due to the current tax year disaster declaration by governor and disaster impact on the taxing unit. Under this method, the calculation shall continue until earlier in the second tax year in which the total taxable value of property exceeds the total taxable value of property of January 1st of the tax year in which the disaster occurred, or 3 tax years after the tax year in which the disaster occurred. Is that all pretty much right?
So can you imagine trying to wrap my head around this to calculate it? If I, it was hard enough to get it in writing, and I appreciated the county attorney's department help in that. I would like to say that a few things. Senate Bill 2 was passed in the last legislative session and became effective January 1st of this year. This new law changed procedures for rate calculations, reducing the cities and counties' rollback rates, which are now called voter approval rate, from 8% down to 3.5% above the no new revenue rate. Another change is any adopted rate higher than the voter approval rate triggers an automatic mandatory approval election, and which is now 3.5%, whereas in the past, it meant the voters had the right to petition for an election with a certain amount of signatures. This new law also created special taxing units, which Aransas County is not a special taxing unit because it doesn't meet the specific criteria outlined in the tax code. The special taxing units that were created continue to calculate and use the 8% election trigger rather than the 3.5%. But in the new law, Section 2604 of the code states the governing body of a taxing unit other than a special taxing unit may direct the designated officer to calculate the voter approval rate of the taxing unit in the manner provided for a special taxing unit if any part of the taxing unit is located in an area declared a disaster area during the current tax year by the governor or by the president of the United States. So the 8% would not even be an option, and this item would not be on the agenda if we weren't experiencing the pandemic and disaster declaration we're currently under. It is the opinion of 2 delinquent tax law firms and Texas Municipal League, this pandemic disaster declaration has activated a condition in Senate Bill 2 that allows local governments in the year of a disaster to designate the property tax rate increase at 8%. And if certain conditions are met, the local governments could do so for the next 2 years. But it is the opinion of some state leaders, including Governor Abbott, that this condition only applies to physical damage from a natural disaster and not economic damage that we are experiencing as a result of COVID-19. And local governments in Texas must adhere to the new 3.5% calculation for a voter approval rate. I've read articles about state leaders who are discussing ways to penalize the local governments who take advantage of this loophole by new legislation in the next session that would force a lower property tax rate on any locality that uses a voter approval rate above the 3.5% above the no new revenue rate. So I just kind of wanted to throw all of that out to you before you make a decision.
Issue a law to keep them from raising what we have to spend by that much on ourselves.
Mrs. Cox, is there any reason why we have to make that decision today?
Yes, because I get numbers next week from the appraisal district, the values.
You can't do anything until you get those numbers, all right?
That's right, but I was told this is the commissioner's court agenda where it need to happen before I start calculating.
We can't give you, in my opinion, what we're going to need until we have all the budget numbers, which would include projected revenue on that. So you're asking us to make a decision before we have all the information assessed?
So maybe our discussion of budget should have been on the agenda before my
I
item.
can't answer that question.
I just-
I didn't set the agenda.
I know, I didn't either. So
Is the budget on the agenda here?
Now, they're not asking us to set a tax rate today. They're just
No.
asking which plan. we-
how do you want me to calculate
Oh, I think
the
you need-
voter approval rate? And if I'm not directed to choose using the 8%, then legally I have to calculate at 3.5%.
But if we need to go to 4.2%, we would have to choose the 8% to do it.
Correct.
Our
Correct.
tax rate.
Because if you don't direct me to do that, when I calculate not this coming weekend, but the next week, then I would have to stick to the 3.5 and you wouldn't be able to use anything higher.
Why can't you calculate it
Both ways.
both ways? And
I have to be directed because there is lines in the code where I manually on the formula have to put in my calculator 3.5 or 8%.
can we direct you to do it both ways and give us the option?
But I keep our options open.
I knew you would.
Mr. Henderson,
I did ask Mr. Henderson to stay for this agenda item. I had another entity ask me a question and then hearing y'all talk about increasing debt, possibly through more bonds. If the bond issue increased it more than the 1.7 that he mentioned, would that, if it throws us over the rollback rate, would we have to have the mandatory election?
wait a minute. Are debt service, interest and sinking fund computed in the rollback rate?
Well, that was my question because Senate Bill 2 was 150 pages long and I haven't been able to memorize it yet. So he kindly
I'm not asking you
called.
to memorize it. I'm just asking a simple question.
He still stands on the way it was. I believe Mr. Mendez said that there was a version where that could have triggered, but they went and stayed with the way you calculated above the no new revenue rate times the 3.5 or 8 plus your debt rate. So we would be covered in that aspect.
I thought it was, the limitation was on the maintenance tax side of it. Yeah.
And effectively, it still is. And so what my recommendation would be, and what Mr. Mendez is recommending, and what we've seen in a lot of other communities, given that you just need to preserve your latitude until you do your budget numbers, is to go ahead and direct at the 8%. Yeah. And
To compute it based on 8%.
yeah, just
Even though there's a difference of opinion in the legal community out there or in the political
Hey,
legal
that's why they
community.
make their money on it.
well,
It wouldn't be a business if they didn't do it.
this legislation is very confusing to say the least.
Well, we know
And-
that already.
What you're doing this evening or this morning is to direct what calculation she's going to make. But until you actually adopt a budget and set a tax rate, you won't know if you've exceeded the 3.5% or the 8%. So because it's a moot point. And then we don't have to worry about the governor's comments unless you exceed 3.5%. Then we worry about it, I guess, at that time. But in terms of preserving latitude for your calculations, I would recommend, and the bond attorney is recommending, that you do the option 2 here.
Keep the upper limit.
All right.
Keep your latitude, yes.
Make a motion to adopt that.
Motion made. Have a second. I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Jerry, can you elaborate on, it's got something to do with the tax
Was
rate?
that an aye, Ms. Lovett?
That was an aye.
Thank you. Unanimous.
Can you, does the deal that's going on where the appraisal district is changing some businesses' method of appraisal to income producing, do you have any insight on what kind of effect that might have on our taxes or where that's at, or?
No, I do not. I do know as a member of the board, appraisal district director board that they have started implementing the income approach. It's a legal approach. It's a hard approach to use because you don't have, people don't willingly share their income, just like people don't willingly share their sale prices of land. So they have purchased some tools, software that helps them in the income approach. But overall, how it's going to affect our numbers, no, I do not know.
Far enough along for you to have an idea.
They don't share where they are value wise, and it's been probably 3 weeks since we had a meeting. But I know the numbers at the same time that the judge knows the numbers. So.
Oh, well, I've already got the numbers.
Well, we kind of have, we have a segment that some people's appraisals have jumped 2 or 3 times. What they are. And I know we all probably have got a lot of phone calls about it, but are kind of uninformed on it.
And there's kind of a question is, it's property tax and it's almost like they're doing a sales tax. Because it's based on sales, not on property.
Well, don't get me started, Commissioner. You know, in my county, I happen to live on the Guadalupe River, and they've got a lot of outfitters. They ag exemption. So I got outfitters next to me that have $1 million properties that are on tax rolls for $20,000.
Right.
So when they went up to $250,000 and they were complaining, I didn't have incentive. I'm paying more for my house than they're paying for $1 million commercial property.
It was my understanding that the change this year that the appraisal district was making based on commercial properties was actually required by the by the audit down here.
By the comptroller's office,
Exactly.
because they get graded on their values. And it could cost our school district a lot of money if they don't bring it.
I don't think we had any option in that.
No.
I don't think the appraisal district had any option.
I don't think so either. And I think that the methodology is still yielding commercial property values that are actually less than what any of those property owners actually sell.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. General discussion on the budget.
Just want to remind commissioners that our workshops are August 3rd and 4th. Based on the sale and talking about selling the bond issue, we may need to look at the date that we're going to adopt the tax rate, because we were going to adopt the tax rate on the 31st. So it may be that we need to push it back to September 14th so that we can catch that bond issue and get everything in there.
I thought we had to have it done in August.
Tax rate.
The tax rate, I will have to look. We will look.
We put out a calendar, and if you go above your voter approval rate, that means that you have to adopt by early in August to have the mandatory election. So we were trying to work the calendar.
Right.
Where that would be covered in that case.
Changing and going to the 8%, the disaster probably changed all of that,
This is
but
all-
we will double check and we will make sure and keep everybody on track and keep, I just wanted to let you know that that may change the date that we actually adopt everything.
Always kind of push the August dates because of hurricane season.
Oh, and Jackie, can we get an updated as to where we are on the budget and, like we were asking last time?
Yes, sir.
Can we get that before then? So we can, where we are at that point in time?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, good.
All right.
Reason.
Budget line item transfers.
We have none.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Accounts, account payable, payroll and payroll liabilities.
Their normal payrolls, we do include some transfers from venues to cover some bond issues. But other than that, it's all normal.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Made and seconded. Who made the motion? I did.
I seconded it.
I did.
Seconded Commissioner Smith, Cheney,
Whoever.
whoever. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We have these to report.
No, sir.
No. This is where any department head, elected officials can say anything they'd like to bring up to the public.
Hi, this is Michelle. I was just wanting to give a reminder to everybody that tomorrow is election day for the Democratic primary runoff. I also wanted to let the court know that voter turnout is increased by 1,000% in this election compared to 4 years ago.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else?
I want to.
Use and go into closed session, so do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn, Judge.
Motion made and second, Mr. Castelline. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. I think we broke another record.